people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. We now know who Rhiannon Dixon, unbeaten up-and-comer Rhiannon Dixon from Wigan, Lancashire. We now know who she's going to be fighting. She's going to be opposite the ring, Christine Shergold. Experienced fighter, bit of a journey woman. 41 years old, sporting a professional record of 7 wins, 6 losses with 1 draw. To Rhiannon Dixon's unblemished record of 6 wins, no losses and no draws. No recorded knockouts, not yet, but don't let that fool you. Rhiannon Dixon can punch. She can hit. She's got a hell of a short right hook, mid-range to inside, and a decent backhand. She's got some power. She's still developing as a fighter, fight by fight. It's been a productive year for Rhiannon Dixon. She got about 3 fights in this year. On the bring-along process, Rhiannon Dixon shows a lot of promise, a high ceiling, but she doesn't come from some deep amateur background, so you can't just fast-track her the way you would a Beatrice Ferreira, a Katie Taylor. These fighters, these amateur standouts and Olympians, Rhiannon Dixon don't come from that kind of background, so she needs a little bit more bring-along, and that's perfectly okay. That's perfectly normal. She saw action 2 times last year, 3 times this year, back in May, then again in September, and she's set to see action again this month opposite the ring, Christine Shergold. Campaigning in the lightweight division, that's 135 pounds. That's where Katie Taylor still reigns as that division's undisputed champion. Needless to say, I don't think it's their intention to put young Rhiannon in there with the likes of a Katie Taylor. She's not ready to fight for a title. She's not ready to see herself become a world champion. Those eggs need more bacon, and as stated, that's perfectly normal. That's perfectly okay. Opposite the ring, Christine Shergold. Christine saw action once last year and once this year, back in September. So she ain't got no ring rust to shake off this weekend. She's seen action in the last 12 months. This will be the second unbeaten fighter that Christine Shergold has fought in succession. In a previous fight in September, she took on unbeaten Vicky Wilkinson, and they fought to a draw. Before that, Christine was on a 3-fight winning streak. It's important to note that in spite of Christine having a couple of losses in the column, some of those losses are to very good fighters, some of the best in the world, the likes of Delphine Persoon, Eva Wallstrom. She fought unbeaten Vicky Wilkinson in her last fight. She's going to fight unbeaten Rhiannon Dixon in her next fight. It's the way it breaks down. And Rhiannon Dixon, she needs this. She needs fights like this. She needs rounds in the bank. She needs time to work on things. She's a promising young fighter. Good athleticism, good foot speed, good hand speed. Fighting out of the southpaw stance, Rhiannon Dixon has a whopper of a right hook with a lot of mustard on that hot dog. She's got a decent backhand as well. It's defensively she needs working on. That's an area of weakness. You know, I've been watching Rhiannon Dixon since she debuted as a professional. Every so often, she gets touched up with a lot of straight right hands. Not a lot, but more than you'd like. Opposite the ring, orthodox fighters that lead with their left in order to set up their right. It's not uncommon to see Rhiannon Dixon get touched by an orthodox fighter's backhand, and that's an area of weakness that needs working on. It's the orthodox fighter's power hand. Big right hand is often a punch that the woman opposite the ring is looking to land, and every so often Rhiannon Dixon, in the heat of the exchange, mid-range to inside, she'll get touched with 1 or 2 right hands. You don't want that. You may be able to get away with it at this level. Opposite the ring fighters like Edina Kiss, or in this instance, Christine Shergold. You may be able to get away with that now, but you want to clean that up. You want to tidy it up. Stay sight on, keep your head off center, change levels if you have to. Make sure you're not on the receiving end, the business end of some other fighter's right hand. You know, that's what fights like this are for, to work on those kinds of problem areas, patch up those holes, those weaknesses, before stepping up in competition. So I'm perfectly okay with this fight. Looks like Rhiannon Dixon is going to be kicking off this weekend's action on the Matchroom show, the Josh Warrington versus Luis Lopez fight.
There's a lot of fucking fights this weekend. There's Warrington versus Lopez, Crawford versus Avanesian,
Sandor Martin versus Teofimo Lopez. There's a lot going on in the world of boxing this weekend.
Yeah, Manny Pacquiao's having an exhibition match in South Korea. That's going on too.
As is Rhiannon Dixon versus Christine Shergold. And conservatively, I'd go with Rhiannon Dixon to win a points decision, but I want to see more than just a decision. I want to see more than just a win. I want to see actual growth. I want to see whether or not...
Patch up those holes.
I want to see a more put-together performance from Rhiannon Dixon that doesn't include being on the business end of some other fighter's right hands. Let's see if young Rhiannon Dixon can pull it off. She'll be in action this weekend. Look for that. In men's super flyweight news, on the heels of his big win this past weekend against his longtime rival, Chocolatito, Gallo Estrada wants to fight Kazuto Ioka. He was quoted as saying, "I wanted to fight him since the flyweight era."
He just beat one four-division champion for the second time. Now he's set to take on another. For those not aware, Kazuto Ioka, like Chocolatito, is a four-division champion and a reigning champion in the super flyweight division in possession of the WBO title.
And he is set to unify titles with newly crowned WBA super flyweight champion Joshua Franco, brother of Bam Rodriguez, otherwise known as Jesse Rodriguez.
Bam!
The winner of that fight will be in possession of 2 of the 4 alphabet titles in the men's super flyweight division. But in spite of that, it still feels a lot like Gallo Estrada is the man to beat at 115 pounds. There is also the IBF champion of Argentina, unbeaten
Fernando Martinez, who saw action 2 times this year, both times opposite the ring, Jerwin Ancajas, the then reigning IBF champion. He took the title from Jerwin the first fight, defended it against Jerwin the second, defended it successfully.
And Fernando is one of 4 reigning champions in today's super flyweight division, though the man to beat, the one among them that stands out, really is Gallo Estrada at this point. And Gallo is looking to get Kazuto Ioka in the ring. Kazuto, who's set to be unifying titles with Joshua Franco. In truth, I like Kazuto to win that fight. And I very much like the idea of an Estrada versus Ioka showdown. Those are the 2 most accomplished guys at this weight, and it helps that it would be a unification match for 3 of the 4 alphabet titles at this weight, super flyweight supremacy.
But there's a twist. 4-division champion Nonito Donaire, on the heels of his loss to Naoya Inoue in their rematch, their second fight, which took place earlier this year, he has intentions of moving down in weight and securing a Gallo Estrada fight for himself.
He wants to get Gallo in the ring. Jointly, former WBO flyweight champion Junto Nakatani has since moved up to super flyweight, and I've no doubts he likely wants to get the winner of Ioka versus Franco in the ring. So there are those 2 guys to consider. Nonito Donaire, who wants to fight Gallo, and Junto, who wants to fight the winner of Ioka versus Franco.
So let's just say that Estrada decides that he wants to take on the winner of Ioka versus Franco, whoever it ends up being. What direction do you go in then?
Well, I mean, if that's something that they want to do, I mean, I'm still gonna try to get in between that, between the deals. If Ioka gets it, then that's something that I'm gonna try to pursue. If Franco gets it, I give him the biggest support. I mean, him, Robert, and all these guys are like family to me. So, so support that, and somehow, some way, maybe I'll go for the other guys. I mean, there's other guys as well.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Like, let's just say that Matchroom presented you with, hypothetically, Chocolatito as a prelude to that fight. Is that something that you would be receptive to while you wait for Gallo Estrada and the winner of that fight? Would you be willing to fight Chocolatito?
I'd love to fight Chocolatito, but at the moment, I want to fight for the belt. So if Chocolatito and Maloney is being offered, I'm gonna go for the title belt.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Because that's just how I want to get the thing that people understand is when you do have a title, regardless if you go back down or go back up, you have to say in rankings whether you become mandatory or number 1. So you want to be placed to be able to fight the next guy in line or the next weight if you want.
One of the more interesting components of that entire conversation between super flyweight and bantamweight is that Nonito Donaire might want to venture south of bantamweight to take on Gallo Estrada, but he still has the option of cornering Jason Maloney for what could soon be the newly vacated WBC title per the WBC's convention earlier this year. Nonito Donaire versus Jason Maloney will be for that title at 118 pounds as soon as Naoya Inoue moves up. We know Naoya Inoue is on the verge of becoming the bantamweight division's undisputed champion opposite the ring Paul Butler, the current reigning WBO champion. Most people feel that Naoya is going to win that fight, and beyond that fight, he's going to move up. He's going to go up to 122 pounds. Once he does, the belts will be redistributed.
The WBC among them, and Nonito has the option of facing Jason for what could soon be the newly vacated WBC title. It all depends on what comes first, I think.
If Gallo Estrada is more focused on getting the winner of Ioka versus Franco in the ring than anything else, Nonito can then explore that Jason Maloney fight. Jason Maloney, who sports a professional record of 25 wins with 2 losses, no draws, 19 knockouts, having only ever been knocked out once, just once. That was at the hands of Naoya Inoue back in 2020. Jason's been busy this year. He's been active. He fought 3 times.
Piled up some nice wins. A decision win over Joshua Greer. A nice knockout win over Ashton Palikte.
Like I said, he's been busy. He fought 3 times this year. 3 times already. Back in April, then again in June, then more recently in October. Nonito Donaire could see himself sharing the ring with Jason Maloney, who's not quite as accomplished as Nonito is, though at the same time, Nonito's still got that left hook.
The one he fractured, he knew his orbital bone with. And you know what they say about power? Power is the last thing to go. Nonito may not be as young as he used to be, but he can still whack. He can still crack.
Where I think all of this is going to break down, I think Gallo Estrada is going to pursue the winner of Ioka versus Franco. That's what I think he's going to do. I think he's going to pursue that unification match. And at that point,
it would then become a question of when is Naoya Inoue moving up? When exactly is he going to vacate all those alphabet titles, the WBC among them?
Because as soon as he does, Nonito Donaire can see about getting Jason in the ring and fighting for the green belt in order to become a 3-time bantamweight champion.
When I spoke to Nonito and Rachel, I got the sense that they like the Gallo Estrada fight a lot more because it would afford Nonito the chance to become a 5-division champion. But I think that Gallo's more focused on unification matches right now than anything else.
And that's what I think he's going to shoot for. And finally, on the heels of his recent announcement that he's going to be boxing with the PBC moving forward, unbeaten 2-division champion now campaigning as a super middleweight, Demetrius Andrade stated on Canelo Alvarez, he ain't trying to get in there with the real dogs or someone that knows how to really fight.
If that were true, your resume would look like his and his resume would look like yours.
That's the logical fallacy that Canelo Alvarez's biggest critics, whether we're talking about his contemporaries or the guys on the ground, the guys like me and you. That's the logical fallacy that Canelo's biggest critics seem to overlook. That if your criticisms and critiques of this fighter were true, his resume would look like Demetrius's.
His resume would look like yours.
He fought Lara, and you didn't. He fought a prime Gennady Golovkin, whereas you didn't become interested in sharing the ring with a Gennady Golovkin until he got older and slower.
You think people don't notice stuff like that?
He unified the entire super middleweight division in approximately 11 months, just 11 months, whereas you sat out all of the last 12 months.
You skipped out on an order to fight Yanni Alimkanulai.
Well, this guy's all the way up there at light heavyweight. After having already unified the entire super middleweight division, he's all the way up there swapping punches with Dimitri Bivol while you're steady swerving the likes of Yanni Alimkanulai, and you expect people to take you serious.
Oh, wait, you're supposed to be some kind of dog and Dimitri Bivol isn't?
You're supposed to be some kind of dog and Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Caleb Plant. You're supposed to be some kind of dog and they're not?
What makes you so special?
The common denominator amongst Canelo Alvarez's critics, at least his contemporaries, is that all these guys have unblemished records. All these guys are unbeaten fighters. And a good part of the reason that they're unbeaten fighters is that they're playing it safe. Canelo isn't.
Well, I know what you're going to tell me. You're going to tell me he's fighting John Ryder next.
You're going to tell me John Ryder is not a credible threat to Canelo Alvarez, but Desmond Nicholson is a credible threat to Demetrius Andrade. Desmond Nicholson in his 6 losses. What? Jason Quigley, Liam Williams.
They love to slight Canelo Alvarez for fighting what are some
European fighters. Some. But where the fuck was Jason Quigley from? Where the fuck was Liam from? Ain't he from the UK? Ain't that in Europe? The difference between the Europeans that he's been fighting and the Europeans that you've been fighting is the Europeans he's been fighting are unbeaten champions, and the guys you're fighting are several cuts below the guys that he's been fighting. And who are you fighting now? Desmond Nicholson, Edgar Berlanga, and Jesse Hart's sloppy seconds. As big as Demetrius Andrade is, because he's a big guy for middleweight, he's just now getting around to moving up to super middleweight after having sat out all of this year. And you expect people to believe that it's Canelo that don't want to fight no dogs.
What fucking dogs has Demetrius Andrade been fighting? What dogs has he ever fought?
I don't think Demetrius Andrade was injured earlier this year. I think that's all bullshit. I think you swerved a Zach Parker fight because you didn't want to box on a Frank Warren show as the away fighter. And as a result of that, John Ryder stood in your place, so John Ryder gets the Canelo fight. He fought the guy that you were supposed to fight.
After you swerve Yanni Bekalim Kanulai, after you swerve Zach Parker, we're supposed to look at you as some kind of dog? Why?
Why?
What's supposed to make you so special?
The only justification Canelo Alvarez's critics seem to have for him is that he never got around to fighting them. But who are you?
What's supposed to make you so special?
You are, in fact, older than Canelo Alvarez by what? 2 or 3 years?
You're a bigger, taller, longer, older guy, and for some reason your resume is a lot thinner than his.
You've got the amateur background that Canelo Alvarez ain't got. The amateur background, the blue chip prospect pedigree that Canelo Alvarez never had. He learned on the job.
So you've got the blue chip pedigree, the amateur background, you've got the height, you've got the reach, you've got the frame.
Just not the names, just not the fights. The signature fights. Canelo Alvarez fought Lara, and you didn't.
Never got around to that.
Canelo fought a prime Gennady Golovkin, while you wait good up until he gets older before you start worrying about him.
Canelo unified the entire super middleweight division when if what you really wanted to do was get him in the ring, you would have moved up there first, beat him to the punch so that when he gets there, you'll already have the run of the place. The truth of the matter, ladies and germs, the truth of the matter, folks, is that these guys are so resentful of Canelo Alvarez because they don't want to do the legwork. They want to get fast-tracked. The fuck makes you so special?
Who did you fight? Billy Joe Saunders fought an unbeaten Chris Eubank Jr., an unbeaten John Ryder, won the WBO title at middleweight from Andy Lee, and outboxed David Lemieux, former champion David Lemieux, in a fight that he was supposed to lose. Now you tell me, what have you done? What did you do?
The fuck makes you so special?
Why do you expect the boxing community at large to look at you as being better than him? Based on what?
Canelo is fighting good fighters, fighters who can really fight. Canelo Alvarez is fighting dogs. You're not.
Though hopefully that will change in the coming year, as he's now over there on the PBC side of things, though it took you long enough to get around to it.
Some of the misfortune in Demetrius's career is his own fault, and some of it isn't.
Some of it isn't, but what we're not going to do is pretend that it's Canelo who's been coasting on easy street.
Any one of those guys he beat would be the best name on your resume, whereas it's just another name on his, because he always fights the best fighters. You don't.